So please welcome Rita Gigante to the show. Welcome, Rita.
Thank you, hon. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, so much. It's so fun when I have a friend reach out to me that I haven't even met in person, but through the podcast, who has been following me and says, "You have got to have Rita on your show."
Ah,
So when I hear those things, it's always a full body yes. I don't even question it. I know it's all part of this, like these little breadcrumbs coming together and the puzzle pieces, connecting. And now that I understand, first of all, your magic, but then
mm,
again, your story. Like, so first I understood your magic, like what your gifts, and then I go down your rabbit hole because I love to do that.
mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what a story. What parents she picked. Like, like,
Right?
wow, her soul is so um on this in this body as Rita. Like what you decided to come to this in this body to experience is beyond,
Yeah,
beyond. So we have to go into, I mean, you wrote this beautiful book
right.
and you've written two books. Are you writing another one?
I wrote a children's book
Yes, the dog.
and I wrote my memoir. Yeah. So, and I'm on my next book. So hopefully, and I'm thinking about doing it a little bit differently. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, I love it. So, your story. It is
Yes.
not often that you hear a story like this. So and I love that you wrote a book, and I know it was healing and um, just part of this plan, part of your journey to
Mm-hmm.
really
Yep.
your growth and everything. But go back to your childhood, and I'm sure you've
God,
told this story so many times.
so many times, but it's funny. It doesn't get old for me because I know that whenever I speak about it, it's healing more aspects of me, and it's also maybe helping others to see something maybe they didn't see 100 times before if they saw me on a different podcast, right? So it really never gets old. But for me, living in my house, I want to say that I don't want anybody to think when they read the story, there's a lot of levity to it as well. And rightfully so, because it wasn't all heavy and it wasn't all bad and it wasn't all like everybody else. You have a combination of things that, that happen in the life. And for me, yes, it was tumultuous, my childhood, but there were great aspects to it, where my mom's family was, the life of the party, and they were a big part of my life. So that was very helpful in getting me through my childhood. Other people's parents that walked into my life, that spirit put in front of me, that showed me the way a family can operate differently. And these were all positive things that came. But initially, it was very, very heavy. It was, witnessing things that 5-year-olds should not witness, hearing things that we should not hear at that age, trauma while I was in my mom's belly before I even came out. These are all things that I don't think people really understand unless they are unless they've come to some kind of an awareness about themselves. They just think maybe they were dealt a bad hand, and and so their life is the way it is, and they either become victims of their life, or they overcome it and they realize I can do more than where I came from. And so my dad, being who he was, the head of the Genovese crime family in Manhattan, um, he walked around in a bathrobe and slippers and feigned mental illness and to evade the FBI. I mean, this was, it was a tremendous dichotomy, to live in a house that, he ruled. And then there was my mother, who was the, loving, generous, uh, old school, typical, Italian wife who obeyed and was a good mom, good wife in most aspects. and very, very, very loving and generous of heart, and even where money was concerned. And they both had no money growing up. Both my grandparents, and both my grandmothers knew each other.
Oh, wow.
They lived like right around the corner from each other. So my mom and dad were playing as babies, you know, on top of a roof, and grew up together, went to school together, and, started, had their first kiss at 12,
Huh. Oh, I
and
didn't know
so
that.
it was a bit of a love story. Um, and then, things happen and people change, um, but the forgiveness and the love and um, the ideal of what my mother saw in him remained. So she, saw this innocent little boy, 12 years old. She never saw him as who he became. And that is the reason why she stayed and loved him and forgave everything. Um, and so for me, I struggled with having to experience a lot of trauma very young, having anxiety and panic and OCD, um, from, I would say, from about 5 years old. The OCD kicked in at 10. But that OCD helped me survive my childhood. It was very helpful in um, feeling in control where I had no
Right.
control, and I thank it every day like it's my friend.
Mhm.
It always helps me to know now, even now that when I experience it, it's like I must be stressed, when I'm going through it. Um, if people have read the book, they know the opening scene of me underneath my grandmother's table. Um, and there's Italian music playing in the background, and I witness a beating that my father gave this man, who, I saw his face, I saw the blood trickling to me. And at 5 years old, you know, what do you do but hold your mouth, want to scream, but you don't, like the sound just doesn't come out. And growing up in my house, you knew at a very young age that you don't ask questions. You don't question anything. Um, and so I just always knew that, you know,
Mhm.
even when that scene was done, um, I didn't ask any questions. I just kind of swallowed it and buried it and didn't have a memory of it I wrote, until I was halfway writing my book.
Right. It's
I
amazing.
was almost at the end. That wasn't even the opening scene.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, that became the opening scene in the end. And so, when I think about it, knowing what I know now, the trauma really started when my mom was pregnant, and my dad asked my mom to get an abortion because he didn't want any more kids. Um,
Because you were the young, like 10 years was the age
Yeah, the gap
difference,
between
the
me and my
gap
brother was 10 years, but he also had another family. So he had 3 children over there, and he didn't want another child.
with the same name as your mother, Olympia.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? It's
Yes.
just fucking bizarre, right? When you think about it, like, what are the chances that name is like, who do we know? Like Olympia
No,
Dukakis is about the only one,
right?
right, that I could think of. But yeah, yes. And so, um, in that moment, that he asked for the abortion, it's the only time my mother told him to go fuck himself, literally. And he backhanded her and broke her tooth. And so I know people don't think about these things, but a child in the womb can feel all of that, can
Hmm.
hear everything, understands it, So already I'm coming out of the chute like a little off balanced, right? Because of what I'm listening to, because of what I'm hearing, because of the emotion that she's experiencing. And knowing, I mean, I wasn't even a thought at the time that she found out about this woman. He already had 4 kids. So this was trauma from my mom from, years before I even came, right?
Right.
And so witnessing certain things and him coming and living with us for about a year after he moved us out to New Jersey, um, and then leaving, another thing that, a 1.5-year-old experiences a togetherness of family, and then boom, it's done, right? They both get arrested at that time for supposedly giving the police department a bribe, you
The
know.
$50 check.
Yeah, that my sister brought in to them.
Huh.
It became this whole thing. They arrested my mother and my father. The charges were dropped, but the damage was done. And he says, I'm going back to the city. Now, mind you, he moved the other family back to the city.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was his other reason for wanting to go back. So he lived with my grandmother from that time forward. And it would be us going back and forth, me living half my life in New Jersey, half my life in New York City.
But not
Um,
with the other Olympia with her children.
no, no,
Oh,
no, no,
okay.
no, no. That didn't come till much later in life. I was in my 20s when I found out
Oh, okay.
about that. And then, yeah, that became a hmm, whole nother trauma to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
was
I'm
dealing a
sure.
lot with mom's trauma. Because I was born an empath. I could feel everything and everyone around me. A lot of times I didn't know what was mine and what was somebody else's. I was just trying to navigate, the emotions. And and nobody knew that about this kind of stuff.
Right.
It's not like, oh, we're going to take it to the doctor and see if they can help her sort this out. There was no going to a doctor. There was maybe let's give her some Valium or, Xanax or something like that, but there was nothing like that. Like I put myself in therapy at 19. Um,
But
so
explain that part because the part about your dad and what you went through as a 5 or 6 year old when he his way of getting away from the FBI was to have a mental illness, the schizophrenia. He'd check himself into the
yeah,
ward. But for you as that child, where he'd say, "Let's go for a walk," and you'd
yeah.
say, "Okay," and then you knew that he'd have to act this way. But
Yeah,
that
that's
part
when
of
I
the
found out at 16, I knew exactly who he was. And then when he would say to me, let's go for a walk, I knew what that meant. He would get into character and, he would um, mess up his hair and put his pea cap on and a robe. And, he had the white t-shirt, pajamas and slippers. And, he would pretty much, I want to say shuffle down the street. And he would say, hold me up. And then he would stop and talk to a parking meter or a tree or anything,
wow.
Um, and part of me would laugh on the inside, and the other part of me would be like, this is so fucked up. This is just crazy shit, right? And it
But
was
did you
hard.
know at the time? Like, I mean, not know as that little child, but you knew it was just an act. You didn't know why he was doing that, obviously, but you knew he was
He
going out.
wasn't he wasn't acting with the bathrobe and slippers when I was very young.
Okay.
He wasn't there yet. It's as I got older that, yeah, that I
Okay.
realized. Yep. So the things as a child though that I would witness would be these men that would sit around him, and pass notes back and forth or whisper in the ear or, of course the phone was off the hook, the TV was on, the radio was on, so nobody could hear anything. So those were the things I would question. I knew he was important because he presented that energy and people
Mm.
just would go to him and he would give a command and that would be it, you know.
Right.
So I knew he was important. I knew he was to be feared, but I did not know exactly what that meant.
When
Uh,
he was into boxing. That's where he started this mafia. Is that where it began?
he was running his own craps game at 14. But then he met Vito Genovese, and Vito instantly took a liking to him, as he was very charismatic, my dad. Took him under his wing, got him into boxing. So he won a lot of fights for them. Um, but then from there, he went to be Vito's driver, and that's how it all began.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's how it all began. And so, he was like, Vito was like a father figure to him. He was like a son to Vito. Um, and, um, and Vito made sure he took care of him, and vice versa. So he became trusted around the street. People knew who he was, and nobody knew he would. Like nobody in my family would know that he would become who he became. That all fell into place for him.
Hmm.
He had to prove himself, and he did. And yeah, then he just took over after that. So
Oh,
very smart, knew how to operate a very large business, um, fairly, most people would say. Helped a lot of people, but there's the dichotomy, right? There's another side to that. There's the fact of killing people and giving orders to have someone killed or hurt or what may be. Um, he loved children, and uh, he would help the elderly or children or families that were having a hard time in the street. People felt very protected with him governing the streets of New York, especially the West Side. Um, so there were parts of him that were gentle. I can tell you because I've experienced that parts of him that were came out of character where I could say, "Wow, there he is. Like that's who he would be if he wasn't this."
right,
You know? But they were brief and they were far and few in between, and, I was grateful to be able to witness it, any of it, because it made him human,
right,
and it got me to a place where I could understand him better and get to a point where I can forgive him.
right. With the older siblings, were they were aware because they were so much older? How did
Sure.
they play a part? Because I haven't heard that. How did they play a part
Yeah,
in that
so
whole?
so my sister Yolanda was a very big confidant for him. He was able to speak with her about mom and the situation and all of that. So she was a great help to him in those ways. And my brothers just, they did what they were told to do. They were never in the business. They were never made. This wasn't what he wanted. He always said it begins and ends with me.
Hmm.
But like anything else, there was he knew how to manipulate very well. He knew how to manipulate with money. And, you know, people bought it hook, line, and sinker, right? So, um, and people do things when they know they can get rewarded that way.
Right. But what makes me think, like when he gets into that where he can figure out how to manipulate, do you
Hmm.
think it's like this road where you just can't go back? You have to keep going because is he getting satisfaction from each thing, or is it where he's just, this is what I've gotten myself into, this deep, there's no going back, or I can't go back. Like,
There was only one point I remember him telling me from the other side where he knew he could get out, but he made the choice to stay.
huh,
And once he did that, he knew there was no going out, no going back. He'd either pass in jail or, God forbid, in the street, something like that. But once he was in, he was all in. Um, and then there was because he knew there was no going back, things had to be controlled a certain way. Now
mm-hmm,
you're controlling a whole organization, huge organization. You're having to control or think you have to control a family, like his immediate family, and then another family that he ends up, having. And so, you're living multiple dynamic lives,
right,
and never really. I mean, when I look at it, I always feel like he was in jail the whole time. Like,
huh,
like y- you may have been walking the streets, but you're always looking over your shoulder. You're always, having to make sure things are
right,
just right so that everything goes smoothly. It's not a way to live. He went on one vacation with my mother, and that was to Florida on their honeymoon for 2 weeks. That
Wow.
was it.
Crazy.
That was it.
Go to 16 when you realized that's what your
Yeah.
father did and explain how these gifts and go to when you go move on to that because you have these gifts and when you were saying to me earlier just a minute ago like when he comes to me now I want people to understand what that means because you
Yeah, well, my gifts came later than 16, but I knew I had the gift of, um, knowing. I don't know how I knew things, but I just knew things. And the gift of being clairsentient, which was being able to feel things. Those 2 things I kinda knew at 16, but I didn't know how to use them or, work with them, I wanna say. Um, the the hearing and the seeing came much later, and there's smelling and tasting involved, but, not all the time. Um, but that came much later, and when it did, I mean, much later, maybe 8, 9 years later, right? Um, and so when I say my father came to me, I was able to hear him from spirit, and he would speak to me once he was in the spirit world, and that took a minute to actually happen, probably about a year, once he passed. Initially, he came, and then he would come through friends, and then he'd finally come to me, and then that would be it. He wouldn't have to go through anybody else. Um, so He and now for someone who, like, maybe I spoke 10 words with every time I sat with him, he just doesn't shut up,
huh.
like, he just talks to me constantly, wants to help, wants to, whatever he can now at this point, so
What does that sound like to you when you hear that when you compare it to who he was as your dad in his
yeah,
human
so
form.
it feels very natural at this point. When he first came in, he was like a bull in a china shop. When I tell you anyone, even if you didn't have abilities, could feel his energy.
Hmm.
Okay. And he was like that when he walked into a room anyway, when he was alive. So there was no mistaking his energy. And then it got gentler and gentler over time. As he would come, I would get the distinct feeling that he was here. And then we'd sit and we'd talk. And so listening to him now feels like that's his truth. Whereas when he was alive, it felt like it was his fear that
Right.
was speaking, right?
I get that.
So at the end of his life, when he was coming to terms with things and when he finally admitted to things because they were telling them that they were going to come after us for obstruction of justice and all kinds of stuff. And when I wrote him that forgiveness letter, that was key in changing his energy before he left here.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I started to feel this shift right after I sent the letter. I had no idea if I would get a response or not, but didn't matter. Like I was up for hours writing it. And once I sent it, it was like something shifted in the energy. But then when he did respond, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt he changed. And by the time he left here, he made major changes.
Huh.
Yeah, before he got to the other side.
When he comes to you now, what are his messages? Like what is he telling you, I'm sorry or
That
this
was
is
in the beginning. He came in and he didn't ask for forgiveness. He just said how sorry he was, how wrong he was, and that he would like to on that side of on that side of the veil help me here. Um, that it would also help his karma. And when he came to me and said that, it was automatic. I already had forgiven him.
right.
So that was a no-brainer. Like, I accepted his apology and, because he saw his life review, he understood everything that I was saying and meant when he was alive, but he could
Huh.
understand it now because his ego wasn't attached to him, you know?
Right.
And so it was a lovely, lovely interaction. And of course, I said, if I can help you, with your own karma, I would love to. And I would accept any guidance here from you from the other side. And so since then, sometimes if a client needs him, he will come in. Sometimes if I need him for something I'm doing, like a project or something, I'd say to him, channel through me, I need to know this, and he'll come in and talk to me about it. Sometimes he comes in through somebody else, especially if I have a reading with somebody, right?
Mm.
He'll come through and speak his truth, because that's what I call it at this point. Um, so it's been quite the journey with him from the minute I was conceived till the minute he passed. He was 77, and it was in 2005. And but now the relationship I have with him now, it's beyond what it would have been and could have been in this world, in the physical world. It's just way beyond.
Yeah, I love that. So, in from the higher perspective in our soul contracts, and what messages, or I know you, or what are you, your take on it is that you are soul connected with him.
Mhm,
He's part of your soul family, and
mhm.
he decided that was what he was going to do before, like that was part of his plan to be in the
Oh, yeah.
mafia and to
Yeah,
do.
I think, that was in the contract, but you know how you have a contract, right? You set the contract in place, and then when you get here, you get amnesia, right? And life goes on, and you're presented with opportunities and decisions that you have to make, and whatever decision you make is going to affect the road that you go down. And could he have stayed a boxer? Sure, he could have, but he got introduced to Vito, and then he saw the money he could make and the power he could wield. And it was so the boxing, although he loved it, absolutely loved it, wasn't as important as now him becoming this energy that he was becoming from being kind of swooped into that world. You know, you start
Right.
to get the taste of money that you've never had, that your family has never had, and you get to see that you get to take care of others, um, but you also, realizing that you can manipulate others with it. So there's multiple things that go with it, but I think he came in with options and then just went down that path.
So was it money driven or more of the control and ego? Because how was your life? Were you living in a
Lap of
mansion and
luxury? No. It was definitely power driven.
okay.
The money came easy for him. That was not, it came in, it went out, it came in, it went out. And, if he laid down $50,000 on a bed, he'd get back 100 the next day. He never worried about that. It was more about the power, that he had. And, no, we didn't live, ironically, what they show you, like in these movies and things, they make it so luxurious. Um, we didn't live that way, you know. At the time that we bought my mom's house in 1967, it was a fairly big house, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, the whole thing. But that's how it stayed. And we added little things onto it. We added like a sunroom and stuff like that. But now that wouldn't, maybe back then it was considered a very nice home in a very nice neighborhood, right? Not extravagant. It wasn't a
Huh.
mansion or anything like that. Uh, and now it wouldn't even be considered that, because there are houses around that area that are twice the size, I want to say.
Huh.
Could be twice the size. Some of them are the same size, some of them a little bit bigger, some of them a little bit smaller, but we never lived that way. And my mother didn't feel comfortable living that way.
Hmm.
So it was a big, big shift when they went from a 4-room apartment with 2 German shepherds and 5 kids to a home that had 4 bedrooms and 2 baths, right? That's huge.
Right.
and I'm sure a little hard to get used to coming
Right.
from where they came from. But it was necessary. What my mother wanted was a brownstone in the city, but he sorted that other woman, and so he ended up with the brownstone. And my mother, which was, I'm going to tell you, was the greatest gift he could have given us, was to come out here. The greatest gift.
Oh,
Yeah, it was so much better that we moved out here. It was hard for my siblings because they were entrenched in this, in that world. Like in other words, they had friends, they had schools that they went to. Their lives were pretty much set at 15 and 14, 10 and 12.
right.
Nobody wanted to leave their friends and stuff. So that was a big adjustment for me. I was, you know, 6 months old.
Wow.
So for me,
That's
this I could never even think of moving
right.
to the
Huh,
city.
neat.
Yeah.
So when you're in your 20s and you massage school, the shaman you meet, there's this turning point at this
Oh
age.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and where you start to realize, oh wow, this is my where I'm going. This is my I'm you're being led.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I was being led the whole time. If I look back now, it started at 16. At 19, I put myself in therapy. By the time I was, 24 and I was going to massage school, I was well on my way to knowing that I had a higher purpose than what was, in my life. I was still struggling with the panic, anxiety, OCD, and I have a realization um, at 3 o'clock in the morning that they can't help me, and that I'm gonna have to do it if I wanna make my life my life. And that was the turning point. That was the turning point, not necessarily the massage and college and all of that were just stepping stones. But if I had to pick a turning point, that would be one of them. Like I remember that 3 o'clock in the morning visit with him, and I'm hearing them, saying, we don't know how to help her. Like, what do we do? How do we help her? Like, I'm thinking to myself, wow, my own parents don't know how to help me.
Huh,
I'm fucked if I don't get my shit together.
right.
It's not that they didn't love me, they just didn't know what to do, you
Huh.
know. So
But you came out and told your parents that you were gay and your
at
dad.
19, I came out to both of them. I jumped back in because of the reaction I got from my dad, which was very unusual. He was very calm, very like, you're just going through a phase. And I knew I was dead in the water if I didn't. And so I jumped back in. But at 24, I came out completely to my mom. And I said, you do what you want with that information, but this is how I'm living my life now.
Right.
And so mom really, listen, mom, because she grew up Catholic, Italian, it was like she was afraid for my soul. And she was afraid somebody would hurt me, you know. And I told her, "Ma, I made peace with it. I made peace with God. I want you to make peace with it if you can. I'm not going, there is no hell and I'm not going." Like it's like, I had to really walk her through that process of there not being a hell. I said, and if anything, it's here. Because we seem to be creating it. And so she then embraced anybody I brought into the house. She embraced anybody. Um, so yeah, that was that. Nobody spoke of it again. He would ask everybody, all my siblings, like, what's going on with Rita? Who is she got a boyfriend? Is she this, that? They would just make shit up, you know. And and I would say to him, no, no, I'm just dating. I don't really want to. I'm more like concerned about my career and all of that. And so did he go to his death knowing I was gay? Yes, he did. Because every parent knows. Did
Right.
anybody tell him outright that I was? No, no. But
Oh,
he wanted somebody to tell him.
right. Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. So let's talk about your like now you're on this journey, you're talking to your dad, you're psychic, you're using your gifts that they're opening up, and now you start this new purpose. You're going into this
Yeah.
new.
I find that every it's like every time I go through something that I have to clear, there's another aspect of me that comes forward that, oh, here's another purpose, or here's another purpose, or here's, you know what I'm saying? Like
Uh-huh.
it just feels like it unravels the way it needs to, um and happens, and then I'm able to share it with others, and it's my um it's my greatest love is to share my knowledge or what I've experienced to help others find their own truth and, live the authentic life they need to. So, however, spirit brings that to me, I just embrace it. You know, I embrace it. So, yeah, this journey now, it's just I'm grateful. I'm just amazed that you know I'm still uncovering things about me that maybe I didn't know a year ago,
Huh.
constantly uncovering. And I think it would be good to have people understand that it doesn't end. Like people say, oh, when does it end? It just doesn't. It doesn't end.
Right.
Like you continually learn about yourself. You continually um, raise your consciousness and work towards whatever it is you're working towards in this particular lifetime. Um, and that was really big for me to learn and understand when it came to what they taught me anyway. Both my parents was you can't judge, you can't judge because you don't know. You haven't walked in somebody else's shoes. So um, I wouldn't want anybody to judge me and my family and the whole life. So I had to learn not to judge them, that life. Um, and then when you realize you kind of created this whole contract and you chose this, then you go, well, I mean, where am I going with that? If I did it, then I did it for a reason, right?
Right.
But not everybody believes that. So,
Right.
but we do. I mean, we create everything. So it's how do you want to create it? Do you want to create a good life or you don't want to create a good life? Like everybody's got that choice.
Right.
So
Do
go
you
ahead.
feel like so, you know, I've had this podcast for 5 years and I see the progression of it through each year or really each episode almost. It's becoming more expansive. And this new energy, our frequency, this new, the veils thinning and all these words that people use. Do you feel when you tap into your spirit guides and you listen, is it, tell me there's messages that are coming through that you keep hearing. What are some of the constants that you keep hearing that you're like, okay, I got it.
So um what they tell me is that um, I've learned a lot, especially recently through the Palladians.
Yeah, I've
Um,
heard you talk about them a lot.
yeah, but the
Why them?
oneness, this again, there was an unfolding in my energy where I wanted to go deeper, and when I asked to go deeper, boy, they they take me, and so I went. I was learning how to activate the 12 strands of DNA, and they're a part of helping you to activate that. And I went to a shaman and a woman who was able to help me do that. So I've been learning through them a lot. They've been coming to me, and they are very, very connected to Mother Earth and helping it raise its consciousness. They're one of the biggest advocates for us here right now.
Huh.
And they're all over the place. So we have a lot of help from the other side that people aren't aware of, but you will become more and more aware of that.
In what
Um,
way? What does that
oh,
mean?
they're going to end up showing themselves, when the time is right. But others will channel them. I'm a big fan of Barbara Marciniak. She's been channeling the Palladians for a long time, and I've listened to a lot of her stuff. But I've grown a lot listening to them, and I always get you know, the idea of that we are one. There is no separation, and and the belief that people have around religion, um, we've been duped, we've been lied to, we've been disconnected, um, because they didn't want us to understand that truth of who we really are, the enlightened beings, the ones that can heal our bodies instantly, and um, you know, uh, not have the the only reason why I remember them saying to me clearly, the only reason why we have like a dichotomy here, or the differences, is because we had to learn from them. Sickness became a tool to learn. Um, you know, um, Disease became a tool to learn. Dis-ease, anything like that, they all became tools to learn to get us back to really the truth of who we are, right? And so, but in reality, we don't need any of that, and there won't be that again.
Right.
Like there wasn't that, there's not going to be that now.
Right.
So it remains right now, but there's going to come a point where there will be no more illness. There will be no more. Um, there won't even be. And this is another thing that I keep um, connecting to a hearing. It's like you get to choose. You get to change your contract at any time. You get to choose how you want to pass. You don't have to pass with a horrible illness if you don't want to. Like you're that powerful, you know?
Right.
These are the things I keep hearing, and working towards myself, having to break down the old paradigms, having to break down what's been embedded, um, for millenniums, and just in this lifetime, break that down, and you know, bring in new concepts and new ideas, and what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the patterns that exist now in the mind need to be broken. New patterns need you know, to be instilled in us.
Right.
Ones where we know that we don't need to be sick, or, you know, we've given too much of our power away. And they keep telling me, help people to call back their power. We need to bring the feminine energy in here to really ground it into Mother Earth, so that we balance out the masculine and the feminine energy. There were times where the feminine energy ruled,
Right.
and the masculine didn't. But it's time now for us to really come into balance with both. And
Right.
so, any way I can help them do that, I do it. I had to do it myself. I mean, I came in very, very masculine energy based. And thank God for my wife, because she's the total opposite.
Huh.
And
Yeah.
she helped me actually connect to my own feminine energy. So, yeah, these are the things I keep, the next 2000 years of peace, and because we're in the Aquarian age, and the raising of consciousness, and the knowing of who we are, and the truth of that. Um, and there's some people that can accept these things right now, because they're at that point where they're aware enough where they go, yeah, I can definitely understand that and believe that. But the one thing I love about the Palladians, they never force anything, and they never tell you, like they always say, question everything. Don't even believe us, they tell you.
Huh.
Question everything, because that is that is your right as an energy, as a God, energy. That is your right. And so when you hear that, and then you hear a religion, an organized religion, telling you this is what it is, this is what you have to believe. If you don't believe this, this is going to happen. If you don't, when there's that fear involved, where do you really want to go? You want to go here. You don't want
Right.
to stay here, right? So, for me, I tell people I'm a recovering, Catholic. I'm just spiritually based now, and God is source, love. I took the angels, I took Mary, I took Jesus, and I took Mary Magdalene with me from
Mhm.
the Catholic religion, and the angels and archangels, and I left the rest. And I said, enough shit. I can't.
Explain the 12 strands of DNA because I've interviewed and I've had past life regressions where I've seen it's been these where I'm there activating people and I see these lines and I can see above their head to get to
Mhm,
12. I have this visual, I have this thing in one of my readings from this past life regression I had.
mhm.
But why were you so interested in that and explain that to people? Like right now, we're living what within the three strands,
Two,
two.
two strands of DNA. Yeah. Originally, there was 12. We got cut off by lower vibrational energies who wanted to manipulate and rule the earth for their own purposes.
And where
And
are those? What when you say lower vibrational entities,
yeah, so some of them were, so there's good and bad in everything, right?
right?
So aspects of um I want to say ETs, extraterrestrials that were darker. The draconians, the reptilian, like some of these were lower vibrational energies that wanted to control the masses. And so would insert their energy in certain portals of this earth to remain in control. And they stripped us of our 12 strands. They left us with two. And so we only use a certain amount of our brain. We're easily manipulated. We forgot who we truly were. Fear became the ultimate thing here so that we would stay in check so that we wouldn't get um, too smart, too much of a knowing about us. And so that it was like, oh, fuck no. Like, I want my 12 strands.
Right,
Give me my other 10. Like I'm like, this is my God-given right, you know?
right.
And so you feel like I felt it in me. So I'm like, I gotta do this. And I I asked others that are connected to me that understand this kind of stuff. I said, you know anybody that does this? And I got this woman who is phenomenal, who was able to activate it. And so it took a merging of that energy, and I want to say a death of an old energy in me to have to happen in order for it to really solidify itself. So there was an old aspect of Rita leaving,
Mhm.
and almost like a walk-in, like someone stepped into my energy, and another energy stepped into me, and then it was at a higher vibration,
Huh.
right? And so that took a bit. I want to say a couple of months for that to really like.
And what are you doing?
What do you mean, honey?
What are you doing? Like, what's the process? What are you doing to get your
Oh, like
to get?
sometimes it'll feel like I'm going through a little bit of a dark night because I'm releasing stuff. Other times it feels like I'm exalted, like, I'm in the energy of with Mother Earth and Spirit, and I'm, fully embodying that light. So it's always about clearing old stuff and pulling in a higher vibration. So I'm just doing that by meditating. Um, and I like to meditate and walk. I do a lot of walking meditation. I do journaling, sometimes a guided meditation, or I'll go to healings, or, where it's not me doing it, somebody else, to help my energy um, get clear, and also um, make sure I'm continuing to process in a way that makes it easier for me to bring the energies in from the Palladians. So they're working with me hand in hand in doing it.
And
And
how often are you doing that with the Palladians?
like every day.
Okay.
Right now, it's an everyday thing. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, yeah.
But you
But
don't
go ahead.
is there a connection to that? Are you part of them? Is that why you're so connected
Yeah,
to them?
so I came through that star system at one point, and also the Syrian star system. Very connected to them and the Syrian star system, which is where Jesus Mary came through. Um, yeah, and how did I know that? It's more like there was an understanding of it when I felt the energy. I always felt connected to Jesus, Mary Magdalene. I knew Mary Magdalene was not who they portrayed her to be.
Right.
I had a
Huh.
knowing about that. Um, and so um, after having that knowing and then going through this process with the Palladians, I asked, I'm like, where does Jesus and Mary come from? And the woman that was helping me with this said, they come from the Syrian, uh, for the most part, from the Syrian energy. And I'm like, I feel really connected to that as well.
Hmm.
And we do come through multiple,
Right.
places. It's not just one,
Right.
right? Um, we are so multidimensional. That's another thing that they keep telling me. People need to understand that they are multidimensional, that they not one, two, three, four, or five even. Like it's like we are multidimensional. So I help people really get to the truth, to the core. As I get to my core, I help people get to theirs,
Right.
which, yeah, is like the best job on earth for me.
Yeah. Um, so when you do have sessions with people,
Yeah.
do you, it's a medium reading, it's psychic. What are you
So
healing?
it started out where they could pick medium, psychic, and then spirit. Woke up one day and spirit said to me, "Yeah, you're going to combine everything because you do it all in one shot." I said, "Okay." So now it's a combination of psychic, medium, healing, spiritual mentoring, all in one, all in one reading,
Huh.
or all in one session, I should say. They just corrected me. All in one session.
Can you get a message while we end this from your
For you?
guides? Sure, for me or for
Oh, a message
any,
just for the group or
sure.
whoever's listening? Yeah, hold on. Let me just. Mm, Okay. So they said, if you want to know the truth, drop into your heart and then into your third chakra, and that'll be where your knowing of the truth is. If you don't want to know the truth, stay in your head because it will take you to a place like you can go down the rabbit hole with in your head, right? With your
Right,
mind. They said the truth is in your heart and drop into that in your third chakra. You will always know, regardless of what anybody tells you, you will always know the truth of who you are. Are you ready to hear it? Is what they're asking. Are you ready to hear it, feel it, know it, see it? And are you ready to embrace it? Now they're posing it that way because they want everybody to think about this. And so that's why they came in with it the way they did. So now whoever listens to this may go there, like drop right into your heart. And it doesn't take much. It takes like closing your eyes, taking a few deep breaths, and visualizing. Because people ask me all the time, how do you do this? How do you do the psychic stuff? How do you do the medium stuff? It starts with visualization and being able to imagine, like imagination. It really, that's why kids are so psychic,
right,
because they do it automatically. So that's how it begins. And then the more you do it, the more it happens. Everyone can do it.
right.
Everyone has the ability.
But when it's medium, when for example you bring your dad comes in, when
Yeah.
you're in a session with someone, are you going, oh, I see your dad, or oh, are they coming in to help with the session? Is that
Oh
usually what?
yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely. They come in to help and I'll get a message and it'll be like, okay, here's the message. This is what you have to do. Do you have any questions about that? Yes, no. Once that ends, they may take me right into the psychic piece where I'm talking about their life somehow. It just seamlessly happens. It used to be separate, not anymore.
okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Oh, I've loved this so much, Rita. Tell people how to find you,
Oh, yeah, sure. They can
sessions
go
with
onto
you.
my website, ritagigante.net. They can sign up for Patreon if they'd like to. I teach every Monday night at 8 o'clock. So they can sign up on there. They can read about me there. They can make an appointment there. But I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, as much as social media isn't my thing, I'm on those things.
I
But
know.
I have good social media people with me now, so I'm grateful for that. Yeah, so those are ways they can. I have let's see, my email is Rita Gigante Psychic at Gmail, or Space of Grace Healing at Gmail. Guess that's probably the best way.
I'm on your email list now, so I'm getting your emails.
Oh,
There's things that
good.
you come there. You're doing a lot of things in person too.
Yes, I'm doing a lot of events because I've been asked by others to. This is another thing that's happening. We're starting to work as groups now as opposed to separate,
Huh.
you know? So I'm doing a lot of group stuff as well as my one-on-ones. And I feel like moving forward, it's going to be more group. People are going to, we're in need of it, the Spirit's saying. We're definitely in need of it because a lot happens in group settings that may not happen in a one-on-one.
Right. And I've been having retreats the last 2 years, and something came to me, and I was like, I'm going to do a retreat. I don't know who's going to come, and I don't know where it's going to be, but there's something just kind of like the podcast. You're going to do a podcast. I'm like, okay, what am I going
Yeah.
to, who am I
Isn't
going
that
to
great?
interview?
I
Yeah.
love it.
But
I
I
love
do,
it.
there's so much power in the people being together and being in that group. And I feel I was in this, I go to these, it's called a Kundalini activation
Yeah.
with breath work. We did that yesterday. There's a bunch of us that go a lot. And every time it's different. And it's interesting. There was probably 20 or so people there yesterday, and it is the energy when there's people, all those people in there for 2 hours doing this activation,
Amazing.
amazing
It's
and life
amazing.
changing and
Oh my God, I know.
elevating and expansion. Like my whole, like today, I've been like this on a different level because of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just, and then you hear these people we all shared. And I'm like, oh, we're all coming together. Our soul tribes are connecting. And it's so fun to hear people who have found their magic and have found that they are so much more powerful than we've been dumbed down to believe,
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely.
And I work with
100%.
children, and I have two children, but teenagers, but I work in the school district in the schools here in San Diego, and I go teach mindset. And when you say imagination, and I see these kids talking about aliens and all, and they draw these pictures, and we do all, and it's just like, oh, and I want to keep that alive, you know?
Absolutely.
So it's a
Absolutely.
driving force in me that I
Mm-hmm.
feel so connected to them, and I feel like I'm that's what lights me up is that interaction with them.
Sure.
And I don't, it's not healing, but it's just it fills my soul, I guess, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is healing in a way, you know?
Yeah.
It absolutely is for you and them.
But don't you, I mean, these children now coming in, I
Oh
mean,
my
instead
God.
of like they're not at 2 DNA, aren't they? Like, are they
Oh, they're much higher
yeah.
than yeah, 100%. It's the parents now having to recognize it and
Yes.
helping them with it. So I work a lot with kids and parents that have a
Oh,
kid that's evolved and they don't know what to do. And a lot of them are coming in with what they call autism, but really they're just highly evolved and they don't know how to handle the stimulation around them,
exactly.
because they didn't have that kind of stimulation in the spirit world.
Right.
And so um, they're a blessing to us. People don't
Mhm.
realize what a blessing they are, but
Right.
they are. So wow, this was awesome, Ashley. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
It,
I
it's
loved it.
different than what I normally. Most people ask about more about dad but it was nice to talk about this kind of stuff. If you
Oh,
ever want
good.
to do it again, I'd be more than happy.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.